Hi everyone, good evening. Good evening. Thank you for coming out tonight. We very much so appreciate having you. So I'm just going to go ahead and kick things off before we get started this evening. It was very, very important for me and the rest of the council to set up this meeting because a lot of us, when we ran our elections, heard the feedback in the community that you didn't feel very involved. There wasn't enough thought process inside of in the inclusion of the development that's going on. So we've asked NAI Michaels to come in tonight and share the plans for Southlake with you tonight and also hear your concerns. I do want to give a bit of background before we get into the evening, just so we can make sure that we steer away from certain things. Before the new council was elected, and I'll turn to some of my colleagues that are in the room, like Dufour and Michael, before the new council was elected, Southlake was agreed on. This has been annexed into the city of Bowie, so this development is coming. We have invited the developers here tonight for them to directly hear your concerns and things that you feel about your community because the development is coming in. It's something that we wanted to include you in the process of. So feel free to share your comments, feel free to share your feedback this evening. They are here to listen to you. We are here to listen to you, so trust me, we will keep everybody accountable here. And just feel free to share your thoughts. But it's very, very important to us that you are included in this process. But please understand, this development has already previously been approved prior to this council being elected. So I just want to make sure that we are clear on that and everybody understands that part of it. Okay? All right, so I'll go ahead and pass it on to Frank. There you go.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Frank Stevens. I'm the city planning staff. This is a stakeholders meeting, and we've had these before. Some of you may have been to one of these, other maybe not. This is not a public hearing. There's no testimony. It's really a question and answer session. There will be no decisions made tonight. The upcoming decisions will be at the city council. Now, for the detailed site plan for the first phase of Southlake, that will be heard by the council in this room on Monday, February 3rd. Okay, we'll be sending out notices about that meeting, and we'll be posting the property within the next days or so. This particular phase one is for about 1,000 dwelling units, which are comprised of detached single-family residential units, townhouse units, and attached two-family units, a clubhouse, recreational amenities on about 283 acres. The site's located in the southwest quadrant of US 301 and Maryland Route 214 Central Avenue. So again, the City Council public hearing for the detailed site plan for what I just described will be on Monday, February 3rd. One request I'd like to make before we get started is that please don't have any side conversations, because the way the recording is taking place tonight, it would be difficult to pick up the main speaker with a lot of side conversations going on. So please keep that to a minimum. I'm going to turn everything now over to Mr. Arthur Horn.
Actually, Frank, can I ask you to do me a favor? Could you speak a little bit about where we are in the process?
Sure.
In terms of the whole zoning and what the detailed site plan is about?
Sure. The detailed site plan is actually the last phase in a series of the development review process. Going back probably more than 15 years, there was a conceptual site plan for the property, which went through several iterations. There were several preliminary subdivision plans, which would have been the next step in the process. And all these have occurred, like I said, over the last 15 years or so. Now we're in the final phase of this development review process, which is the detailed site plan, which focuses on the building architecture, landscaping, signage, things of that nature. That's what we're talking about now. All of the decisions regarding adequate public facilities, stormwater management, emergency services, and things of that nature, those have already been addressed, and those issues have been satisfied in one of the previous stages during the preliminary subdivision plan. So we're in the last stage of the review. Now, there'll be different detailed site plans for the various phases of the development. And the one before us tonight, the detailed site plan before us tonight, is the first one regarding the dwelling units and other items that I described earlier. So this is the last stage of the whole development review process. So now I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Arthur Horn, who will go into more detail about the project.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stevens. Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Arthur Horn from the law office of Shipley Horn. Very pleased to be here representing the applicants. In this case, it's a joint venture between the NAI Micro Company and Chesapeake Partnership. They're represented here this evening by Mr. Kevin Kennedy. There he is behind me, my Vice President. And many of you, I recognize the faces. You all have been here with the previous meetings that we've had. Mr. Scott Rao, Jamie Atkinson are from Chesapeake. From NAI Micros, we also have Mr. Dennis Brownlee and Mr. Julie Curry. And we also have a community liaison, Mr. Tony Perez, who is here with us as well. So we're here to pretty much answer any questions that you may have. We want to thank the council for inviting us out and to be able to have the ability to come back and talk to you about this. Mr. Stevens gave you a breakdown of pretty much where we are in the system. I just want to clarify that he's correct. This DSP has 1,035 dwelling units, of which 344 single-family detached, 563 townhouses, and then 128 two-family dwellings. There is approximately 5,300 square foot clubhouse, and eventually there'll be about 830,000 square feet of commercial. You may have seen this presentation before, but just want to run through this really quick just to give you a background of where we are in the process. So yes, the South Lake where it's located with Central Avenue and 301, 214, and 301. That is the plan as it first started out in 2004 compared to where we are here in 2020. This is the, many of you heard of the Liberty Sports Park. Liberty Sports Park is the property that's right adjacent to this. It's going to be, it stands on its own, but there's an interconnectivity between the Liberty Sports Park and the South Lake development.
I just want to clarify for Liberty Sports Park, for those who do not know, that's county property. That's not South Lake's property.
Right. This is the first of the detailed site plans that we're here to talk about today. As mentioned, there are several iterations of detailed site plans that we'll be going through. Road infrastructure, apartments, commercial sites, and then the future commercial sites. And this is this DSP right here currently. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. And this is a comparison of the green space. Back in 2004, the old plan had 162 acres of green space remain. Here in 2020, we're proposing 163.7 acres of green space. This illustrates the various recreational sites, yes.
This on? Yep. In case, yeah, okay, it's on, good. So on this exhibit, the green circles represent interior recreational facilities that are going to be oriented towards the community, the different pods of houses that are going to be built. And then the red line represents an alternative master plan trail. So If anybody here has looked at the county trails plan, there is a master plan trail that's planned for the stream valley of Pope's Creek, which follows roughly along the railroad tracks that's to the west of our property, and it's to the east of Collington Station neighborhood. And that alignment goes in the stream valley for, I think, several miles down to Upper Marlboro. As we've been working on this property for about 20 years now, and working with Park and Planning, we determined with them that this stream valley is very challenging for trail construction. So while the alignment is still there, and while they do own a portion of the land, and we are dedicating over 60 acres of additional land to them, including that trail area, it's not likely that it will be built there first. And since we did want to make sure that there was a trail amenity associated with our project, we have proposed this alternate alignment that's going to go through our development. It's going to connect from Old Central Avenue all the way south to the southern end of our project, which connects to, as Arthur said, the Liberty Sports Park on the adjacent county property. And from there, the trail will connect to the existing Trade Zone Avenue and Prince George's Boulevard. And the Park and Planning Trails folks are looking at ways to take the trail farther south from that point. But within our project, it's going to be aligned next to our main road. It's going to be a semi-urban trail, 10-foot wide, and we have it primarily running closest to the multifamily and to our commercial core, so that people who use the trail will have the opportunity to also stop, maybe get a beverage or get some food along the way. And as part of that, this asterisk symbol here represents a trailhead facility. So there'll be parking spaces, benches. I think we might try to have like a bike repair station and a little covered area. So if people need to rest or to fix their bike and then be on their way, it'll be an amenity there for them to do that. I think that's about it for recreational facilities.
I think we may even actually show what it looks like a little later.
Yeah, we do have an elevation of the trailhead facility a little bit later. This slide has just some representative elevations proposed for the first phase of the commercial development, which will primarily be like a shopping center. So we're really going after a high-quality grocery as an anchor store, and a few smaller shops to go alongside of it, small retail, restaurant, things of that nature. One of the only things that's really changed with our plan from 2004 to 2020 was just the changes in the retail world. So whereas originally we might have been planning on some more big box type retail, that doesn't exist anymore. And so we've designed and tailored our design of the retail to match the current market and the current needs of both the stores and of the community. Another new slide that we have that was added since the last Bowie meeting on this project with these elevations of the proposed apartments. The apartments will come in under a future detailed site plan, as Arthur said. So this is not formally under review by the city or by the county yet, but several people had asked, so we wanted to get these elevations done early and put it in front of you in conceptual form just to show that it's going to be very high quality architecture for the multifamily. These are going to be high-end apartments, primarily brick and masonry exterior, high quality finishes, and this is going to be the same kind of product that our development partners at Chesapeake have built in Anne Arundel County and Baltimore County and several other projects, and it's going to be very nice. In addition to the high-end apartment buildings, the multifamily component of the project will have its own clubhouse, and that's going to be an all brick building like you see here, and that will serve the apartments, and there will be a separate clubhouse for the rest of the community that's more centrally located. This is just an example of site furnishings, benches, bike racks. Not too exciting, but this is something we always have to include in the presentation for Park and Planning, so we included it here for consistency. These are the details of the trailhead facility that Arthur mentioned. Like we said, there'll be a covered pavilion, there'll be some benches, maybe a picnic table. This is actually a covered map, so there'll be a map of the whole trail system there, and of course, trash receptacles. These are elevations of the clubhouse for the larger residential community. This will also be a very unique structure that our partners have designed specifically for this project with high quality finished materials, primarily brick, and I think cementitious siding. What is that? Yep. And heavy timber trellis features, and it's going to look very nice. And then from there, we go into some representative elevations of the proposed residential units that are part of the detailed site plan under consideration. These are representative of the 2/2 condominium product. That product it's a building that looks kind of like a large townhouse building. If anybody is familiar with the Hall Station project that's on Central Avenue, just up the street from this site, we have 2/2s, and those are the buildings, the residential buildings you can see right on Central Avenue there. So these are the proposed 2/2s, and they are two-story condominium that are stacked on top of each other. So each vertical stack that looks like a townhouse has 2 condominium. It's a lot of stairs, but a lot of people like them. We find them to be very popular in this area. And then there's regular, these are townhouses. I believe there's another stick, more townhouses. As you can see, all of the housing types have an emphasis on high-quality materials like masonry, brick, stone, things of that nature, bay windows, things to make them look interesting, like articulated. This is called articulated, where the buildings stick out a little bit from each other. And we're gonna pull out all the stops to make sure we have high-quality product in each house type here. This is one of the single-family houses. I want to just dwell on this briefly to say that we have heard from the city, from residents and from the elected officials, that there is a focus on house types that allow people to age in place in the city. And so this is an example of a ranch-style house. It's not very common to be able to buy a brand-new ranch-style house in the county, but we're going to bring it back here. These products will be focused on having things like a first-floor master bedroom, and other features that make them adaptable and appropriate for people to remain in as they age and their mobility might be impaired, and things of that nature. And then we have a few more examples of the house types, single-family house types. And this is the largest one. And then the last couple of slides just have to do with the proposed look from the exterior. Our partners at Chesapeake have come up with the logo design that you've seen in the bottom left corner of all these slides. And that design philosophy will be carried through the different types of signage that will be at the entrances to the neighborhood, as well as at the entrances to the smaller neighborhoods within the project. And we think it's a very attractive feature. It's going to be brick and stone based with a nice logo. And that's it.
I'm sure there's a lot of questions, but let me just start out by saying, where are we in the process? We, as Mr. Stevens mentioned, this particular DSP will be determined by the city of Bowie here on Monday, February 3rd. We're in front of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning's Planning Commission on Thursday, March the 23rd. Is that? 20, what's that date on Thursday? That Thursday? The 19th. 19th, March 19th. And so far that will be, if approved, that will be the first step in beginning to move forward with the development. So we have hopefully everybody here to answer the question. Yes, sir.
I'm John Butler from Turnberry Homeowners Association. What plans have been made for improving the traffic flow on 301? Because right now it is horrendous come rush hour time. And it can't take much more and it'll be at a dead stop.
Okay. Thank you for asking that question. That's a great question. That's a topic that comes up at all of these public events. One thing that we, the Michael companies and our partners Chesapeake, have prioritized with this project is to pursue the road improvements first. So I know that you've been to several meetings on this project in the past. Maybe not everybody has heard this before, but we have made it a kind of first order issue to make sure that road improvements are included as part of this project. When the project was originally approved, it included approvals to just simply contribute a lump sum fee into the road club. And unfortunately, the history with road clubs in the county is that even if the developer does make the contribution up front, the money goes into a fund and is kind of dissipated throughout the county. You don't have any guarantee that the improvements are made where they're needed. So Mr. Michael, my boss, when he was conceiving of the project, said we're definitely not going to do it that way. He has always been pushing for making sure that we do the improvements that are associated with this project. Originally, when he decided to forego that fee, the fee was about $750,000, and we estimated that the real cost of the off-site road improvements was $5 million. And now I believe we're up to 10 million, to 11 million. I mean, we're getting much farther beyond what we originally anticipated with the cost, but we are still committed to doing those improvements. So, as part of that, we've already received the permit for the first phase of state highway improvements, which includes improvements to Old Central Avenue and some improvements along our frontage on 301. We expect to work on that to start spring.
Very soon.
Yeah, very soon. So I think we're kind of on hold because nobody wants to get into heavy road work during the winter, but the permit has been issued and we are gearing up to do that with the next major phase of our overall construction. And I believe there's one other phase of off-site permits that is still percolating with State Highway, but we're more than halfway through that process, so we expect that permit to be issued soon too.
Mr. Robertson, Collins and Station. You talked about improvement. Does the improvement include additional lanes going north and south?
The improvements that we have right now are focused on southbound along our project frontage, as well as traffic signal improvements that will be both southbound and northbound. We do have a future phase of development, of residential development, that will trigger additional improvements that are on the northbound side. And that was actually a provision that the Bowie Council, the last Bowie Council specifically negotiated for.
So going southbound, would there be one lane or would there be additional 2 lanes?
It's additional 1 lane plus acceleration and deceleration widening at our entrances.
One other question. Based on this letter received from Mr. Minor,
Minor?
it indicates that the detailed site plan is the purpose of constructing a portion, and the portion includes 282.97 acres.
That's correct.
So, which still leaves additional acres.
Yes.
What's involved in the other subject? In the other acres? It's
Yep.
not indicated on here.
So if you can see the screen here, the area that's shaded in blue on that slide is what's included in the current application that's listed in that letter. And the areas that are shaded in gray are the development areas that are not included. The areas that are not shaded, the areas that are left white to the left or to the west of the blue, those are preservation areas. So those will remain in woodland conservation, preservation, and open space. So the remaining development areas, the gray shaded areas that are on this slide, up at the north end, that's commercial. Then you have townhouses and single-family homes and condominium that are part of the current detailed site plan. Then just below that, this is the apartment pod here. And then just below that is the commercial core. And that commercial core will include the retail stores that I talked about with the grocery store and the other smaller stores, as well as several hotels, restaurants, and other commercial entertainment type facilities.
One last question, and I'll sit down. In the planning, were there any plans for additional schools, high school, middle schools, elementary schools?
That's a good question. That comes up a lot in these meetings as well. We actually, many years ago, before we even filed for any kind of construction permits, we made a contribution to Bowie schools in the amount of $250,000, $250,000. And that contribution was used to free up classroom space at Whitehall Elementary School in the city. In addition to that $250,000 upfront contribution, as this development progresses, all of the residential units will require the payment of what's called a school facility surcharge. And for this project, at the current rate of the fee, it's going to be over $20 million generated from those fees for these residential units. So this project will end up contributing a very substantial sum towards school facilities in the county.
So are the schools going to be in the vicinity, or is it going to be somewhere in Bowie?
Yeah, unfortunately, the difficulty is we don't get to dictate where the schools are located. So we pay, we give the money, And it really is a project for the local citizens and elected officials to work together to put pressure on the county board of education to get those schools where you want them.
And they asked that at the last minute, and we said to the council that we definitely would work with you in trying to make sure that some of the money is put back into the system in Bowie. So
just to give a brief overview, at the last time they presented, we specifically asked them that education question, especially me, myself, as a newcomer, not really understanding and trying to learn more about that process and how that works. So we specifically asked them about the educational fund and things of that sort. The thing is, part of the money that's going towards this development is going towards education. However, the city of Bowie does not control that fund. That's controlled by the county, and that's controlled by Department of Education as well, if I'm correct. So this is something that I asked them specifically, would you be willing to support us on the back end, with our local lawmakers and things like that, to try to get that support, to try to get another school to come to Bowie? And that's something that they said yes, and they agreed to. So it doesn't necessarily lie with us at the city level. That lies more so with the county and Board of Education. So that's something that we would need your help with as your elected officials to really express that to the county and Board of Education that we do need another school because there is a lot of overcrowding that's going on.
Okay, my name is Faith Freeman. My name is Faith Freeman, and I'm from Tanberry also, right across the street from your development on 214. I understand that you took my question about the building of 301, the changes to 301 going south. Are there any planned changes for 214? And what are the entries to this development off 214 and off 301? There's one other question. There are a line of trees along 214. Will those trees be removed, or will we continue to have the pleasure of those trees?
Good questions. I'm gonna answer the second one first, if you don't mind, because it's the easiest one to show on the slide. Going back to the kind of green tinted slide that shows the old preservation plan and the new preservation plan. One thing that I quibble with, even on this old plan, this is not the old plan that goes back to 2004, but you might remember that we used to have a roadway that extended all the way up to Central Avenue, right opposite Hall Station. And that would have entailed cutting all these trees in the upper area, and even actually a little bit more width than the roadway itself, because there's a big ravine there. And we would have to fill in the ravine and then build that road. So that was one of the many reasons why we decided to change the roadway. But to answer your question about the trees now, you can see this green stripe here is all preservation. So those trees are not going to be cut down. I believe we've cleared the majority of what is to be cleared up there. There might be a little bit more along Old Central, but in terms of what's there along Central Avenue border, those trees will largely stay there. So that's the first question. And then I'm going to go back to one of the overall site plans to try to show how we get in. So I guess this one is the best one. Wish it was a little bit bigger, but I'll use the pointer. So instead of accessing Central Avenue up here, now we are accessing Old Central Avenue here. And as part of that, we will be making improvements to Central Avenue. So our site entrance at the north end will be sort of in the middle of Old Central Avenue with a traffic signal. And then we'll have another traffic signal here on Central Avenue 214 to help regulate the traffic that's going to be coming out of the development. In addition, we'll have a right turn in, right turn out entrance off of 301 here, just south of the apartments, as well as another one at the northern end of our commercial development. And then there'll be another major intersection here on 301 where the Wawa is now, at the Wawa crossover. We'll be widening that crossover. We'll have a traffic signal on both sides, north and south, and then that will be actually the main entrance with a large roadway going in. So you can maybe see it a little bit better on this slide here, that's going to be the main entrance.
Hi, just to follow up on that, as detailed as you've got with your drawings, including what the benches and the garbage cans look like, I'm a visual person. You're pointing this little pointer. Do you have renderings of actual how the traffic reconfigurations will look? So we can see what they look like? I mean, pointing that little pointer in the corner doesn't work, but a picture, just like you've gone through pictures of the garbage cans and the park benches.
Yep.
Do you have something of that detail that you could put up here so we could actually see what changes, where the lights are, what it looks like, what renderings?
That's a good question. We have very detailed construction plans, but they're not going to be any nicer to look at. We do have these symbols here, and I'm sorry for the size, but the traffic signal symbols, those are where the entrance points and the traffic signals are going to go.
Maybe a blow-up would do. I'm just saying, does everybody get what they're saying?
No, that's a good comment, and we are working with the traffic engineers to do a more user-friendly graphic for all those improvements to kind of put it all in one place.
That would be good.
Yep, and that will be, and just to piggyback off of your question that maybe addresses other questions or concerns, we are working on a website dedicated for this project that will include all of this information, including that graphic, including more of these numbers and statistics and figures that we've quoted, and more granular detail about the houses and about the stores as they come online and things like that. So we are working on a centralized information repository, like a website for that. And we expect that'll be probably in the next couple months that should go live, and it will grow in terms of detail as more information becomes available.
Okay, thank you. The next question is the timing and the phasing. It sounds like the houses, these up to 1,300 homes, will be constructed before any commercial space is developed, meaning people need to shop, eat, do things. You're going to have a large population that don't have any place to go but up 301 or down 301 to get their groceries and get very basic things.
Right.
So when is the timing of the commercial property to satisfy a large population coming in? Is that going to be 2 years from when the construction happens of the homes and people have moved in, within months, or how's that working?
Also, a very good question. Thank you. This is a difficult period right now because we do have the detailed site plan in for residential, and we don't yet have the detailed site plan in for commercial, but it's mostly drafted. We do have those elevations that I showed you on the other slide.
But as you know, it takes time. I mean, people who live in this community know what happened when Giant moved out and trying to get other people into that space.
Right.
So
that's why we
I'll
haven't
get a
submitted.
grocery store could take.
Right. So that's why we haven't submitted the site plan. We're trying to nail down the deal with the anchor tenant first and make sure that the plan is appropriate for what they're looking for. Based on the timing as it is coming together now, although the residential detailed site plan is going forward first before the commercial, not all of those units will be built right away. And we anticipate that the timing should still come together so that the first group of stores, including the anchor store, will be opening within 6 months of the first houses actually being completed. So right now, what you can see happening out there is mass earthwork, basic infrastructure for the whole site, no buildings. And we anticipate that period will continue for the majority of this year, basically, just infrastructure work. And during that time, while the infrastructure work is getting completed, we'll be coming in with the detailed site plan for that first bit of commercial, and we'll be more synchronized, probably in 2 or 3 months' time, we'll be more synchronized in terms of the plan for the commercial and the plan for the residential being approved, and the building construction getting set up to start. So we hope that the first stores will be opening within about 6 months of the first houses being sold or occupied in the case of the apartments.
Can I ask a follow-up question? You said being sold or occupied. Those are two very different things. What do you mean by being sold? Are you saying it's going to come 6 months after the house is occupied, or 6 months after you actually sell the house? Those time frames are very different.
So the two terms, I meant to distinguish just between for sale, like townhouses, houses, and occupied apartments. But I meant residents moving in. So the sale of the house to an end user or the lease of the apartment to a renter, things like that. So within 6 months of that, there probably will be some overhang one way or the other. Either the store opens first or residents occupy first, but we don't expect it to go for more than 6 months.
Hello, my name is Beverly Simmons, and I'm from this area. I moved here from Brandywine, okay? I was gonna live here 15 years ago, and we did not. there was supposed to have been a high school built 15 years ago right there by the Safeway. So I was called here today, not on your behalf, but on behalf of the whole community, to say if you build these 1,000 houses, and we keep saying that there's going to be a high school built later on, and we keep building houses and not building a high school, we're going to be overcrowded again. So right now, there's only one high school in Bowie. We know it's not you all. We know it's our councilmen, our senators, but we have to stop somewhere. These children are standing up on our buses, and we keep building. It's not you all, but we do have to stop. So I came here for my grandchildren, because it's no longer my children, they're grown now. It's 15 years. So now the grandchildren are starting to go to high school. So we have to think about our children. We have to think about my home. I have a first floor bedroom house, but I'm thinking about maybe buying one of those little small ones because it's time to scale down. So I might be buying one of your homes. My granddaughter might be living in your home, and she has to go to high school. So where is she gonna go? So we have to think about high school, middle school. We have to think about these schools. Only one school in this whole area for our children to go to. This is a big deal.
Hi, I'm Greg Wilson. A couple of things. First thing I want to ask, it's lovely that we live in such a prosperous community and most of us aren't starving to death. But there are a lot of seniors and there are people who would like to live in Bowie who don't have a lot of money. Are you going to, at least in the apartments, have something set for seniors, people on fixed incomes, where they'll be able to live there without worrying about being kicked out because the rent keeps going up so high? That's important. The next thing, the young lady approached the high school issue. Everybody knows that you guys don't have anything to do with that. But because money talks and we know what else happens, okay? If you were to put your voice into a little more with the county wanting that to happen, right now the concept I'm understanding, there's going to be 6 elementary schools, 6 middle schools built to eliminate some of the.
Those are the words of the vice chairman of the school board. Said their decision to take the $1.5 million first report back from the state, the county council, county executive, and your senator here sponsored the legislation. That money came home as a record number for Prince George's County, and the board decided to go with 6.
Yeah. Now,
Middle school.
again, that's, you know, yeah, I'm putting the pressure on you because you guys getting ready to make $1 billion off of this. Okay, let's get real. So now, what I'm talking about is this. The funnel system, you just keep making the top of the funnel larger, it still doesn't make any difference when it hits the bottom. They gotta go to Bowie High. All right? So that, I would really like to see somebody step up, at least try. All right? The other thing, primarily, you know, you're saying that there's going to be a grocery store that's put there. Are we talking about an Aldi's or are we talking about a Whole Foods? Okay? I mean, you know, we don't need another Aldi's necessarily, but it wouldn't be bad to have a real decent grocery store there. We all understand that the box stores are all going out of popularity, but there's all of these, Woodmore, I mean, these places are still building and those box stores are doing well. They just built a Silver Diner. I mean, they're doing all of this over there. So the concept that it can't be done, it just don't work. You know, it's not.
I didn't say no Silver Diner. I said no big box store.
Okay. Okay. But basically, those are my, you know, not almost a question, but you get where I'm going.
Yes.
And I'd like to find out what Have you guys thought about that, what your concepts are on that, and where we might be looking at? Good question.
Sure. Yeah, that is a good question. I'm sorry, I'm gonna go backwards again. So with last question first, in terms of the retail, the grocer specifically, but just in general, all retail. For those who aren't familiar, Michael Companies has been in business in Prince George's County for over 45 years. We have developed many shopping centers. Since I've been with the company, we have built and owned 3 major shopping centers. We have College Park Marketplace, Vista Gardens Marketplace, and Ritchie Station Marketplace. In all of our centers, we really strive to focus on having higher quality retailers, and we also focus on viability long-term. So one thing that has been a problem, for sure, in other retail settings in Prince George's County and elsewhere, is that you have a developer who is looking to build and sell, and they build the shopping center, they lease the shopping center as quickly as possible, not necessarily always paying attention to the mix and the interplay of the different stores or creditworthiness and things of that nature. And that is how you end up with the boulevard, honestly. Not to pick on anybody, but they're long gone. And I think you'll find with our shopping centers that we always strive to have stable tenants who complement each other. And in addition to that, we always try, and I'm not taking credit, it's always Mr. Michael, forces the retailer to do something more, do something better, do something different that they haven't necessarily done before. We, in our shopping centers, had the first Starbucks drive-through. That is not an impressive thing right now. It was a pretty big deal 20 years ago when we did it. We have had a great relationship with the Shoppers Food grocery store chain. We have always had the best ones of that chain in our 2 shopping centers where we have them. At College Park Marketplace, we had the first Shoppers Food with a pharmacy in store. That was an innovation there. And at Vista Gardens Marketplace, the innovation was fresh seafood because shoppers had never had a fresh seafood counter before. And when they opened that fresh seafood counter, they sold the record number of, I think, lobsters. Their supplier was surprised. He had never sold that many lobsters in a day. So we always go for quality. So here, obviously, Shoppers is not an option. Unfortunately, they are winding down, but we have been taking that same approach with regards to the grocery store and the other retailers. We are pursuing a high-end grocer, quality grocer, a full-size, full-service grocer. I'm not saying not Aldi, but I'm kind of saying that. So our first choice is to have the full-size, full-service store, the top level, because this is a top-level market. This is a high-end demographic in terms of income, in terms of education, in terms of shopping preferences. We know a lot of people go to Wall Chapel or they go to Annapolis to shop, and we want to keep that traffic off 301. We want them to come here. So we're going after a good quality grocer. Another thing that we focus on in our centers is to try to promote local business people and entrepreneurs. And I know we've done in other situations with Hard Times Cafe in College Park, even though that's really old now, it was a big deal at the time, and with Grace's Restaurant at Vista Gardens Marketplace. And I know we have some local restaurateurs in the audience tonight, and we're hoping to work with some people from Bowie to do some more upscale and innovative local concepts with regards to the restaurants. We certainly understand that people are concerned when they hear retail now because the retail market nationally is doing so poorly, but we are confident that we can do it. We have a good track record, a good experience, and we'll make it good. And also for the group, we do take suggestions. So if anybody has any store they want to see, you can let the city staff know, or I'll give you my card afterwards. We'd love to talk. Scott?
Be part of the website.
What's the square footage of the grocery?
So when I say full size, that would be 60,000 square feet or larger. For comparison, Aldi is about 18,000.
The one thing you didn't answer on, and that's about the seniors.
Yes.
The lower, moderate income people.
Yes. Good reminder. So we did have, I think as one of the other ladies pointed out, we do have the ranch-style house, the first floor, one-floor house. There's 2 models right now proposed, and they could add more later. Those are going to be geared more towards either very small families or towards older residents that would prefer to live on one floor. As far as the apartments, they are going to be market rate, but in general, we are going to have a wide range of price points and affordability in terms of, offering apartments, 2-over-2 condominium, small townhouses, large townhouses, small single family, larger single family. So there's going to be a broad range of affordability. In terms of specific senior housing, that is something that we agree that there's a desire for and there's probably a market for. Unfortunately, that's one that was never part of the original approval back from 2004. When we were negotiating the final stages of the annexation with the city a little more than a year ago now, we had thrown out there that we are agreeing to conform to the 2004 plan, except we asked that we would have the leeway to add senior housing. And the city said that they liked the idea, but they wanted to exclude that, and they want us to come back to the city with a specific plan. So that's fair, and that's fine, and that's what we'll do. Right now, we don't have a specific plan for it, although we have set aside a couple of locations on the site plan where we think it would work in a future phase. So that'll be something that will be coming back before you all and before the city council and the county council as a kind of new approval for a specific senior housing project, and that will be a future phase, most likely.
I'll just add that the county is establishing a housing policy as we speak to try to address those issues, and more developments will be incorporating the fact that you have to have a moderate income housing in your development as well. So the county, they're on a retreat next week, and the housing policy is one of the things they want to discuss. So that's being discussed.
David Cunningham, Turnberry Development. Just 3 questions, and if you've explored any of these previously, I apologize. One, do you have a projection number of school-aged children that might be living in the development? 2, is there a provision for school buses to transit through the facility? 3, are you providing, and I know this is now a question for Metro in large part, but are you providing access for Metro buses into the development?
Okay, good questions. So first, I'll go in the order this time. So the first question is, yes, calculations were done at the time of the preliminary plan of subdivision. That was approved in 2004, and those numbers are still good. So the calculation methodology hasn't really changed substantially in the county, and the anticipated number of school children to be generated by this housing has been factored into school planning since 2004. So yes, there are numbers. No, I don't know them off the top of my head, unfortunately, but they have gone into the long-range planning for the school system since that original approval. In terms of provisions for access for county school buses, that is a big issue for sure. My father's a county school bus driver, and I certainly hear about it from him in some of the neighborhoods he goes to that he thinks I'm associated with. And this one, the streets are all up to the county code and the city code, and the widths provided are adequate for both school bus and fire truck. So that has been factored in. And then in terms of the public bus facility, whether it's Metro bus or it's the county bus, which is called the bus, there is a provision in our existing approvals to accommodate bus service, whichever entity operates it.
Pardon me, I just need to make sure that you're all aware of something. Metro is right now trying to shut off all local buses in Bowie. Okay, so those of you who are aware of that, they are trying to shut them all down right now. And so if you want to keep a bus line in Bowie, you better get on your emails to Metro, because they said phone calls don't count. Because we've been working on trying to keep that going. So the idea of expanding, I don't know if you guys can say anything to Metro or not, but we're fighting right now just to keep the C28, the C29, and the B29, and then all of the other B buses that go up to Crawford. So, pardon, just looking good.
Hi, I thought I heard you earlier mention that you donated, your company donated $250,000 to Whitehall Elementary School to free up some space. That concerns me because as of October 2019, Whitehall was 172% over capacity. And we're now transferring some of the students now to Northview Elementary School because of the overcrowding. And when I look at this community, I mentioned this last night, when we buy these new homes, we all talk about it. It's cheaper to move into Bowie because it's reasonable, because we can send our kids to private school. This is not going to help the community at all. And it's not going to make the schools any better. So that does concern me. I wanted to piggyback on this lady here because if you build more houses, you're talking about more traffic. The question on the table is how many of those families are actually going to go to attend the public school? I look at Crofton, and Crofton is building a brand new high school, and the community is not as big as this community here. So that is a concern for me to our politicians in Bowie when they made this deal. The other concern that I have is we made a deal without knowing what supermarket is going to come into the community. To me, excuse my language, that's bass-backwards. So I don't understand how we can put a deal on the table since 2000, and when you talked about this deal 2004, how we could not plan. And I don't want to hear that the board doesn't have anything to do with it. It's the county, it's the school board. When there's something new in a committee, the council takes credit for it. They take credit for putting up a new playground or putting up something else. Take credit for this, because this deal, I believe, was not properly made. That's just how I feel. I think a lot of people in the community feel that way too.
Okay, I mean, thank you for your comment. We don't necessarily agree with all of it, but.
I'm just hoping I know you guys are in the business of making money. I think the builders have made too much money off of this community. And I think the politicians have benefited, and I am tired of it. I've lived here for 15 years.
So,
I pay city, state, and local taxes, and I cannot send my son to a public school here. I can't.
I understand. I just want to say with reference to the grocery store idea, you say make a deal with, you can try to recruit the grocery store. No, 2 months ago, nobody knew that Shoppers wasn't going to be around. A few years before that, nobody knew Giant was going to be bought out. And so, as far as the grocery industry, things change pretty rapidly. And so it's not any way to try to lock down on a particular grocer. You just provide them with an opportunity to come into a community, a beautiful community, and hopefully you can, everybody, I won't say everybody, but most of the upscale grocers want to be associated with Bowie because you have the income, you have the population.
Why aren't they here? We live in a food desert in South Bowie. Why aren't they here?
Well, we're working to correct that. I mean, we agree with you, and there needs to be a grocery store here. We're going to get you a high-end grocery store. And I do want to address the one thing that you said, though, just so we're all clear where we're coming from. The majority of our team here are all Prince George's County residents. A lifelong Prince George's County resident, Arthur.
40 years.
Mr. Curry, Mr. Brownlee. I mean, we're all Prince George's County people here. And we understand the perception of developers and everybody's going to make $1 billion and leave and they don't care what they leave behind them. That's not how we are. That's not how we operate. We never once made $1 billion, and we also don't, trash the community.
There isn't any disrespect to you, but when I see zoning next time on, it makes it very hard to vote for any of these things that they put on the ballot. Because when they talk about zoning and they add it to the ballot, a lot of people really don't understand it. And so that, like I said, it concerns me. You didn't have to lock in it. Let's say you could have locked in the grocery store maybe a year ago when you really made this public. And that's a concern of mine. If you wanted a grocery store here, we could have locked in someone a year ago. I mean, I look at Crofton. There were deals made when Woodmore was built. Who was going to come in, a Costco? How long did that take? So my concern is really to the politicians. It's not to the builders, because you're going to come in, you're going to make your money. And my thing is, it's short term for the politicians, but it's long term for you guys.
That's right.
Can I ask a question? I'm Dennis Brownlee. I'm part of the partnership. I work for the micro companies, but I'm one of the owners as well. And let me answer that question. It's a great question, but I think it's important too from a different perspective, and as a resident, been here my whole life, that we understand the process. And part of the process, if you take Ritchie Station, you may or may not be familiar with it. It's eventually going to be 1 million square feet of retail. It is nothing that we planned. A good portion of it is. We had no idea that we would end up relocating most of the Pahinco automobile dealerships there. We originally planned for Sears to come over from Landover Mall, from J.C. Penney's to come over from Landover Mall, basically, and relocating there.
Sam's Club.
We had absolutely no control in 2006 and 2007 that the bottom would fall out of most of our economic lives in 2008, and that's what happened. So as we're talking to companies right now, the companies we're talking about and negotiating with, unfortunately, those that we can't, reveal at this particular time, any day we wake up, it could change. That's why even for us, the risk factor, those that, you said we're gonna make money, we may or we may not. Vista Gardens was 13 years in the making. That one happened to hold good. College Park was another 20 years. You've seen a chart that talks about 2004. I came to the company in 1995. My third day on the job was a discussion about a development called Carrington, which is this development. It changed names, a number of you here know that, from Carrington to South Lake, okay? 1995. And if you look at those two things, those two charts and graphs there, not a lot has changed about the conceptual idea. When it becomes reality, when funds are raised, when you're trying to get folks to make commitments, including the local government, the local community, and everyone, things change. So all we can commit to in this process is that and that's why we're here, and I'm glad we're here, and again, I commend the council and everyone in Bowie. We're gonna try to answer all of those questions, whether it relates to schools. Kevin talked about one contribution. Those of you may or may not know that we were involved in the development in Hall Station, for example. One of the concerns the city had is that there was no library in South Bowie. Okay? Our commitment and our involvement with that development brought the library to South Bowie. So as we talk about schools and as we talk about all the amenities and those that we require and those that we want, it is definitely our intent to do the same thing here. We're not going nowhere. We're part of this community. We're vested. I wish we could commit to a Whole Foods. I wish we could commit to one of those. We will do our best to do it. We understand the neighborhood. We understand what the requirements are. And when we can do that, here's where we need your help. In championing us, at Vista Gardens, we had a website called For Restaurants. Okay? And that's where you could go online and tell us and vote for what restaurants you would like to see at that location. That's how we got Panera Bread. That's how we got Olive Garden at Ritchie Station and other restaurants. We need you because guess what? We can go to Las Vegas, which we do every year, to the shopping center convention and all that good stuff. We promote and we do everything we can to sell Prince George's County along with the county executive and others. Okay? But you know who really sells that better than we can? Is everyone sitting in this room. Because those receipts, 207 receipts from Prince George's County that you drive to Crofton, Anne Arundel County, Annapolis, wherever it is, we need to bring those back here. And we can tell that to the retailers, so when we put our website up, we want you to tell that to us, and that's the evidence, not anecdotal, that's the true evidence we can take to them to help convince them to continue to come to Prince George's County. That's how it happens. I just wanted to explain it from a practical point of view, and I'll answer any questions as well.
I got a question. You should, my name is Jeff, and you should know what retailers increase property value. You know, Costco, Whole Foods, Starbucks. So why are you not marketing to those?
We are.
Yeah, but you shouldn't ask ask the audience for their opinion for which retailers should come here. Through your research, you should have enough information to go out there and seek those retailers that increase property value.
We do. We are.
So if you look at Ritchie Station, if you look at Vista Gardens, if you look at what we have done, and as Kevin stated earlier, those are retailers that we market all the time, and those are the ones that we place in our centers. You won't find Again, in answering what the community is looking for, it's a constant relationship with them. It's a constant relationship with all those retailers, plus some. And that's why we have that relationship that will allow us to bring good quality retailers to this development as it has done all the other developments that we've done. So it's not like we're not talking to anybody.
And my second question is that, I see in slides, like a young lady said earlier today, you see in slides, but you're not seeing numbers, and you're not telling anything about the Michaels companies, your company. Is it a real estate investment trust? Or how do we know you're going to be around in 10 years?
We've been around for 45 years.
I understand, 40 years, but, every, company doesn't last for 100 years. So, but my question is, you talk about investor, but is this a real estate investment trust?
No, we're not a REIT.
Okay.
No, we're a private company, privately owned company. We're not a publicly traded company. The company is still primarily owned by the Michael family, okay? And then there are senior partners in the overall executive function of the company.
So my question is, why is it such a secret? You're showing like slides with pictures on it. Why is it secret in reference to numbers publishing?
Okay, because the numbers that relate to this project, as we indicated, we have some here that we can give you tonight, some handouts. Okay. We put in the website that will give you the specific numbers on this development and exactly what's going on.
This is my last question, because you want us to make informed decisions without numbers. Come on now, that's hard to make informed decisions that agree with this project without seeing any numbers.
What numbers are you making reference to?
Statistics, about, your proposed, your projections, your performance, and all that other stuff, like numbers.
You mean of the ownership entity that's developing this?
No, not even that. Just, just statistics. What your expectation in reference to the number of school-age kids, projections, performance.
Okay, all of that, and the one thing that I think both the council indicated, a lot of those numbers, traffic numbers, potential population numbers, all of those have already been given.
No disrespect, but it's not being shared with the residents of the city of Bowie.
Okay.
So someone needs to do a better job with, before you come here, they should have had like a presentation, pass out something, because you're trying to make us have informed decisions about a big development, $1 billion. Come on now, we need to see something.
Well, but I think
it's like something that's hidden.
But we have provided those numbers.
Yeah.
The government has helped generate those numbers. It's required that we do traffic studies, we do facility adequate numbers. Okay, if you want those numbers, we'll get them to you.
I need to, no,
I missed that earlier, but over the last 15 years, those numbers have been generated.
Yeah.
But you said the numbers for 2004, we talked about 2020, we talked about 2000 change.
Right.
So
any numbers you want. Any numbers you want as relates.
I'm speaking on behalf of all the city of Bowie residents to provide that information.
Well, I will say, in Dennis's defense,
how can the council making informed decisions without, we vote for them, but we're not seeing no numbers.
Right. So
statistics.
I understand. And if there's any numbers that you want, any numbers that residents want, we have absolutely no problem giving them.
So we get it tonight or whenever, or you make a commitment right now?
I make what?
What?
I'm making a commitment about that information.
I think I would suggest if you can communicate, you can tell us if you want to list it out now, communicate with the city staff, however you prefer, to let us know what.
But I'm a resident, taxpayer resident, so I have to go.
I just want to say, you're providing Dennis with an excellent "I told you so" opportunity right now, because he told me that we should have handouts for tonight, and I said, come on, nobody wants a piece of paper to take with them, so I was wrong. I stand corrected.
Okay, stand corrected, because you need to make informed decisions without looking at something.
But all of these numbers that you're talking about, as Dennis indicated, they're all public record. They're all in the case file.
But it's not being shared.
Well, it's all, as far as those specific numbers, those are numbers that were reviewed and vetted at a prior stage of the development. That's why they're not focused
tonight. I think what we
tonight.
can say right now is that they do exist, and we will share the numbers, sir. I will get them to you.
Absolutely.
All of these numbers and all the information that you're looking for pertaining to South Lake is on the City of Bowie website. So every development that's going on in the City of Bowie has a web page on the City of Bowie website with all the information there. So if you're looking for those specific numbers, and if there's something you'd like specifically, please talk to me, and we can try to get that out to the community. But it's on the city website.
Okay. Your city staff does a great job. They do very detailed memos and reports for all the cases. So I think you'll find what you need in there.
Good evening.
So thank you so much for the conversation around numbers, because I'm interested in knowing more about the school-age children who are going to be in the community. I heard a lot of residents here this evening, as well as last night, talk about schools here in Prince George's County. It's nice that you all made a donation to Whitehall Elementary School, but if these students are going to school in Bowie, they're going to Pointer Ridge Elementary School, Benjamin Tasker Middle School, and Bowie High School. And right now, those schools are already overcrowded and or at capacity.
Right.
No, they are. My daughter is a school-age child, and I am heavily involved with PGCPS. I'm telling you that those schools are. And so we would definitely need something else than
$20 million.
what we currently have. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
in addition to the money that was already advanced before all the approvals and everything, the project is going to generate over $20 million in school facility fees.
Okay, so.
And in addition to that, as your council member said earlier in the meeting, we've committed to work with the residents of the city of Bowie and your elected officials to help do a lobbying effort or whatever is determined to be appropriate to get with the county officials, the school board, and the Department of Education folks to try to get that money focused, just like I was talking about earlier with the roads and making sure that the road improvements happen here where we need them. We agree with the idea of trying to make sure that that money gets spent here in the community for the schools as well.
Correct. I just want to make sure, because I don't want this community to end up like Fairwood. Fairwood was promised a school. They never received it. And so, you know, to this day, parents are still upset, and majority of them who can afford it send their children to private school. And so I want to make sure that this is not equivalent to what occurred in Fairwood.
Okay, we'll work with you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Robertson from Collinsville Station. Several questions and comments. So this project, South Lake, has been around for, you say, 15, 20 years, right? And it's changed its name.
Correct.
So it's been approved, correct?
Correct.
So when is the start date?
It started January 27th last year
Okay.
in terms of construction.
Has there been so it's already started, but for us, a traffic plan, has there been an approved traffic plan?
Yes. Yep.
I thought they were supposed to do that before they built.
No, we started clearing and grading the site last winter. Like I said, we have about another year still to go of just that mass site infrastructure. During that time, we had already been processing the state highway permits, and we've obtained the first of 2 state highway permits. And that work on that first permit phase will begin in the spring or in the early summer when we transition to the next major phase of construction on the site.
So the improvement of the road, the additional lane is going to come after they build?
No, no. It will still be well in advance of any building construction, vertical building. Right now, we're just moving dirt.
But you say they already started it, right?
We already started moving dirt.
So they started moving dirt.
Correct.
Doesn't a plan for improvement of traffic supposed to be before that?
I'm not sure what you're trying to catch me in here, but we are going to do the road improvements before any buildings are built.
Okay. Last thing I have is, so city council members, they know about the need of schools in Bowie, correct?
I believe that they do, yes.
And the city council personnel before these guys that are in place now, they knew about that, right?
I believe they
And the
do.
city council members before those guys knew about the need for schools, right?
Yes, sir.
Is there any plans right now to build schools?
As we've said, that is outside of our direct purview as these developers.
So what I'm trying to say, sir, based on the plan of this and the city members, the city council members that was in place,
yeah,
they still haven't made any progress.
They did though. They got us to give $250,000 to free up classroom space in one of the city of Bowie schools prior to all of our approvals even being completed, and we did it. So we did it. That was something that was done and completed.
Just as some kind of background information, I'm Dufour Wolfley. I'm a councilman from District 2. I was elected, obviously for this current session, I also joined the council halfway through the last session. There was a recall effort, for those who may remember. A lot of it was associated with the development concerns over at Marketplace and a host of other things. I joined the council at that point in time. This council presently has a significantly different outlook on how these projects evolved and you know, what we should expect here in the city. I can't tell you anything other than the fact that, you know, these gentlemen will tell you, you know, I'm not necessarily on their Christmas list for cards and so forth, because I had concerns about the development. That's not the way the majority of it went. We ended up with, over the years, the council approved the plans that came along and agreed to annex the property into the city, and agreed to a bond support for the project as well. To your questions about the schools, it gets back to the reality. We as a city council cannot, you know, put schools up. We do as a group, and we've always as a group advocated for more schools, and we work with our state delegates, and we work with our school board representatives to try and advocate to get more schools for Bowie areas. Case in point with Fairview, that's a classic example where, you know, people had an expectation, and I think there were a lot of original intent that it was actually going to happen. And then somebody comes along later and says, we either don't have the money or don't have the need, or we're going to balance it with some other school or whatever. Somebody else comes along and comes up with a different story later on. That having been said, you know, you should know certainly that, you know, and I think I speak for the council folks that are here, we are really committed to the same issue that everybody else is. Unfortunately, we don't have the control over it. And it does take the participation. It was made mention of earlier about advocating at other levels of the government and where we need everybody's support. And to the point earlier gentleman made about sending emails, because phone calls don't count, right? And Mr. Wilson, right? And you know, to that point, that's the sort of advocacy that's got to happen beyond just the city council level. We as a city council are the closest to our citizens. I mean, this facility here is great. People walk in, come in here, speak. You know, I send out emails on a regular basis. I get feedback. Can't you do this? Can you do that? We are the most proximate form of representation. However, that doesn't mean we can solve all the problems, and we find ourselves advocating on behalf of our constituents in these other forums. So we're committed to that. There has been a significant increase in civic activity and interest, everything from, you know, schools as well as development, and I'm really encouraged to see people out here this evening, because it really shows that there is a concern and an interest in this community, and we need to keep this up, and we need to ensure that we are sharing those concerns with all of our folks. So to the point that there is and continues to be schools, I'm not the least bit satisfied with the fact that there's $20 million, because that doesn't have Bowie's name written on it. You know, and we recognize that, and you know, that's something that, you know, we're already having conversations with others about. I'm not sure how much we'll be able to change, because if you take away, you know, if it comes to Bowie, that means you may be taking away from someone else. So it's that constant, you know, squeezing of the balloon. And I think that, you know, we've been shortchanged on the schools, and we have overcrowded, and certainly in this particular area, in this particular neighborhood of Bowie, South Bowie, in this area here, there is a dearth of schools. And, you know, we've heard people speak to this earlier.
Sir, have you been to Bowie High School lately?
Lately, it's been a couple years. But yeah, and I've been to the, you know, to the center, the Performing Arts Center. But I've not been in the school probably for 2 years or so.
I talked to a young lady who had to stand up on the bus because she had nowhere to stand, nowhere to sit to go to high school. We got to do something. You know, I cannot sit. I couldn't sit standing listening to you talk. We got to get to the point where we can't say, we don't have enough money. These kids are overcrowded in these high schools, and we haven't even been in the schools to even see if they are overcrowded. We gotta go to the schools and look and see what these kids are talking about. These kids are standing up in the schools. These kids are sitting in the classrooms, 30, 40, 50 in a classroom. They can't even learn. We gotta go. We gotta look to see what they're talking about. I have been with them. I'm standing around a pole and praying with them. I know what they're talking about. They're overcrowded. They can't learn. Some of them are slitting their wrists because they're tired of going to school. So we got to stop saying we don't have the money. We have money to build houses. We got money to build ice skating rinks. But we don't have money to pay for these kids to go to school.
Couldn't agree with you more. And that's absolutely true.
I'm sorry. I'm not taking it out on you. I'm not taking it out on anybody here. You guys have to know this. I'm sorry. I'm saying we have to say enough because we keep making excuses. We have $1 billion to spend, but we haven't stepped a foot into the high school to see what these kids are talking about. Some of us. I'm not saying everybody. Somebody has gone over there. But we got to do something about it. We got one school, one high school in Bowie. All these kids for one high school? That doesn't sound right.
The same one my wife went to.
Yes.
Without any improvements.
Any improvements?
Absolutely.
We got to do something. That's all I'm saying. Thank you, sir, for listening.
And there is an ongoing commitment. As a matter of fact, we have tours that are going on right now. A lot of our council people are taking part in going around and visiting our schools for that very reason.
So I just want to say really quickly because I completely understand. Like, I want you to really know that we are committed to education. We are trying to solve it. We are trying to figure out what is it. I mean, I went to Bowie High School. I grew up in this area. Like, I didn't, it was not too long ago that I graduated. Like, I want to stay here. So we are absolutely committed to that issue and finding out what the best possible way to solve it is. Ingrid and I were just at the local elementary schools yesterday, and we're going tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock to tour all of the schools. Bowie High School is slated for next week. We're trying to figure out a way to supplement the schools and bring certain programs to the area and try to work with them. We are very much so trying, and we are committed to that. So I want you to know that we hear you, we see you, we really understand what's going on, but we're trying to find the solution that we don't have right now.
And I'm saying this as a person who graduated from high school who couldn't read. So you're looking at a person, when I graduated, I couldn't read. But I am retired from the United States Air Force because I had to go back to school to learn how to read and write. Because I wasn't taught, because I went to a school that was overcrowded. So that's where my passion comes from. Because I know what those kids are going through. So we have to look and take care of our children. Okay?
Thank you. We're trying.
All right.
Right here, ma'am, right here.
Hi, I have a couple of questions. From what I understand, okay, so there's $22 million that is going to be added to education as these are built. So let me ask you a question. How many homes are going up? I didn't catch that part.
Sure, the total is 1,360.
Okay, and what percentage is going to be completed? When is going to be completely done? Because from what I understand, you have to be built out in order for that $22 million to be added. Am I correct?
No, it's paid per building permit.
Okay.
Per building permit per unit.
Okay.
So as they build, they pay.
Okay, my concern is this. I understand what the lady was saying. The issue with Prince George's County, and I agree with Dufar, what he was saying, in Prince George's County, the schools are not at full capacity. That's one of the problems. And it's hard to justify, and this is what I've been told, I've gone to the meetings, it's hard to justify to invest into another school when the schools are not at full capacity. In Bowie, they seem more crowded because a lot of people in a lot of new homes are going into the Bowie area. So a lot of the money is controlled at the state level, if I'm not mistaken, at the Board of Education level. So you have to, and also, Ms. Alsobrooks has actually gone to Annapolis and she's tried to fight for additional funding because our infrastructure is dated. And if you notice, in parts of Prince George's County, they're trying to pull the money together to build the schools. So if this $22 million comes in, it's not going to come to Bowie per se. It is going to go into a fund. And that's what's going to happen. Like I said, I've gone to the meetings before. It's just that Bowie is over capacity because people want to live here. And that's one of the attractions, because people like the community. You know, it's something about it. It's been around for a while. I moved to Bowie because it reminds me a little bit of Columbia. But unfortunately, the school system doesn't, you know, it's not doing that well. As far as the new homes are concerned, when Ingrid Turner was in office, when she was on the council, her thing was when you have new homes or new communities, her idea was to redirect the students to Duval High School, so these students may not be directed to Bowie High School. Although they may be in the city of Bowie per se, because it's an annexed city, what happens is they don't receive the services, it's just the name almost, if I'm not mistaken. So they don't get the services, just like on the other side of Vista Gardens, that's Bowie or whatever, they don't get the services. Those kids go to another high school like Wise or whatever. So that's kind of, if you have the concerns, it has to be at the Board of Education level if you want to write a letter, because I don't think that even the school board really doesn't have control over how our money is spent. It is at the state level, unfortunately.
I have two questions. They aren't related to schools though, so I hope that's okay. One, given that most of the condominiums in the county are not FHA approved because of the delinquency rates throughout the state, I was just wondering if you could give some background about the rationale for building more condominiums, because the ones that you mentioned, for example, Hall Station, are not FHA approved. And then the second thing I wanted to find out, do you know who the residential builders will be? Just so folks have an idea of what that quality of home looks like, whether it's like the Toll Brothers or whether it's like Ryan.
Sure. So with regard to the FHA, we don't directly deal with that issue, although I understand your point. I own a condo in a development that's not FHA approved currently. But that being said, I mean, what we found is with the newer condominium developments, even ones built since Hall Station was built, both the builders and the buyers and the community have gotten a lot more used to that product type, and they do a lot better job of vetting out the financial documents that underlay the condo with the FHA and also with qualifying buyers. So we don't have direct control over that issue, but we don't expect it to be as much of a problem in any kind of new development, such as in South Lake, as it has been in the past when, condo development was pretty much unregulated and that was not thought about before.
There's only probably like 5 or 6 in the whole county.
You can't.
That are, so I'm saying, so some of the newer ones, like I'm not sure about Woodmore Townsend, but most of them are not. So regardless of whether, perhaps, I understand that may not be.
So you can't get permits to build without certifying that it's FHA approvable. So each building is kind of held up until you can demonstrate that the financial fundamentals are there in order to build it, and that goes into specific language in the governing documents. It goes into how you fund the initial association when you set it up and things like that. But there are more safeguards in place that were put in place since the last economic downturn to help try to prevent that kind of situation in a new development. And like I said, we haven't seen those kind of problems in the newer ones that have been built in the last 5 years, whereas even when Hall Station was built, that was pretty novel. It was the second 2-over-2 development in the county. So they have improved that situation, and we would expect that given the demographics, given the incomes in the Bowie area, in the South Bowie, Mitchellville area, we don't anticipate that to be a problem here.
And the second question about the builders?
So in terms of the builders, okay, so we know part of that answer is NV Ryan. So, people have thoughts about that. In this particular project, and we showed some of the elevations, those are the higher end of each product category from both Ryan Homes and NV Homes. So they're anticipating doing a mix of Ryan and NV product which I know was done in some of the later stages of Fairwood. And I know one of my friends owns one of those houses. It's extremely nice, and it's a Ryan home. So they're going to bring the upper ends of their product lines to this neighborhood for both Ryan and Envy Homes. There will be at least one additional builder that will be, I would say, considered more of a higher-end oriented builder, but I don't think we can announce that one yet, right? Yeah, that one's not quite ripe enough yet, but we've got another one coming soon. All right.
Hi, my name is Ida Wilson, and I want to go back to the high school. We have 2 older grandkids that went to Bowie High School, and for the longest time, I've been trying to figure out for myself how I could be active and proactive in getting a high school built. So I'm asking tonight, how can I help? And maybe other parents in here who are concerned about getting another high school, how can we move forward as a community to make sure that the city or the county knows, that the county knows that we are serious about bringing a high school to Bowie?
There are a couple of things. The first is we do have an education committee here at the city. And we could stand to benefit from additional participation. If you go to our website, being the City of Bowie's website, you can see all the committees that the city relies upon for information, guidance, as well as effort to move things forward. And the Education Committee is part of that, and that could be a good place to start. The next thing I would suggest is we as council people send out updates and notices, so we like to inform people when things come up. For example, it's not a school-related issue, but for example, at the racetrack property, that we're hoping that we can, currently the legislative session is going, we're hoping that maybe we could get that property turned over to us. And so as council people, we send out to our constituents points of contact as it relates to that particular issue. So we will have a list of all the people that you can email, and we as council members will distribute that. So get on the distribution list for your council people, engage with the city as members of committees, and please come in. And when we have discussions about projects such as this, it's important that people are here as well.
Good evening. My name is Alfred Lott. I'm the city manager. And I have a 4-year-old grandson that lives in the K section, and my daughters, my son-in-law are concerned about the education issue too. To answer your question, how to get involved, you all need to do this at the school board meetings. You need to show up in mass, en masse, if you look at the French Revolution. You need to show up en masse, just like you are now, and talk to somebody who can actually do something about what you're talking about. Because this guy can't. I'll be frank with you. He's a nice guy. He's a fast talker. Okay? But he can't do anything. But then you need to go to the school board and line up and tell them just what you're telling us. That Bowie High doesn't have showers. That's absurd. And the infrastructure is outdated. And also, you all have congressional state delegations. Part of the funding comes from the state of Maryland. Therefore, you are all represented by Senator Peters, Ron Watson. You need to write these people, talk to them, go see them, and communicate with Mr. Hogan, who just drafted the budget that includes the money that will go to the schools. So you need, but first, start with your school board representative, go down and talk to them, and be just as frank and honest and emotional as you were tonight. Do that then.
Let me ask you, Mr. Lott, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Why can't we rebuild a high school with private funds? Because in the newspaper, they used to talk about using private funds to finance, to update the infrastructure for schools. So why can't we do the same thing with that? Why can't we build a high school in Bowie with private funds?
Who would be the builder?
I'm not sure.
Well,
that would be for the board.
First we do have laws and regulations in the state of Maryland. School systems and the public education is under command and control and been delegated to counties. So first you got to change that law. You need to get cities to build and operate schools in the state of Maryland. Now you can do it in other states, like Manassas City and places like that, but not in this state. In this state, the law says Prince George's County's public school system takes the money and they have the authority to operate a school system. We don't. Now we could possibly,
Have a lot.
contribute to certain funds or certain programs, possibly. But we have to look into that too legally. But right now, the state of Maryland controls who operates public schools, and they say the counties do. First, you got to change that.
And just to piggyback, your delegation, House delegation meets every Friday morning at 9 o'clock. If you want to come out and let's talk to all 23 of your state delegates. I mean, you have your district 23 delegates, but you get to see them all perform and discuss some of these issues every week on the sessions, on the 90-day session that starts in January and goes through April. So you need to do that. So you should come to Annapolis sometimes to see how that goes, but he's absolutely right. Your school board is where you should start, but you should definitely talk to them about how the funding works and the whole general fund and all that.
This is a slight change of questioning. It's not about the school system. We keep talking about high quality. My question is, with this new bill, because the law has not been signed to shed about the water meter for condos, is this new development going to have the ability to have condos, units, be able to pay their own water bills instead of one massive water bill?
Yes. So I believe that it's already a requirement now that the units are individually metered. Prior to, you have to design it that way before you can get permission to build now. And that's for all new 2/2 condos of this type. I believe we squared that away last year, actually. There was a lot of confusion after the session last year, I know. We had on a totally different property, not in the city of Bowie, we had a different 2/2 project that was right about to go to settlement when that law kicked in, and everybody freaked out because at that first blush, it was not possible to approve a 2/2 condo building. But we were able to work with the local delegates and WSSC to get clarity on how that metering would work. And so it is set up now that these units all have individual water meters. Because my condo is the opposite of that, I think, which is what you're concerned with. We just have one water meter for 200 units.
One last question, because we were right there in Hall Station. That was only 2012. Is there anything probably that can be done about these units that are already built that do not have the sub-metering?
Specifically in Hall Station?
Yes.
In that style of unit?
Yes.
That's interesting.
We paid one bill.
Those were set up to have individual unit meters, so the condo association might be able to go back and work that out with WSSC, but that would be a kind of WSSC question.
I'll connect you with the
Yeah. So those little sheds, sorry, that was my project. Those little sheds that are attached to the end of your building, those were meant to house water meters for the units. I think at the time, WSSC didn't know how to, the issue is not putting a meter in for each unit. The issue is how you delegate responsibility for the pipe itself, before it splits off into everybody's individual meter. And so maybe the builder just didn't put in individual meters because they couldn't figure out how to do the easement.
So is this going to be an HOA community?
Yeah, on steroids. The question is it going to be an HOA community? And so first of all, as a matter of practice, Park and Planning, which is the plan approving board in Prince George's County, they always want everybody to have an association. Even in commercial developments now, we usually have a commercial owners association. But yes, there's going to kind of be like a tiered system of associations. So it'll be a master association, and then it'll probably split out between homeowners and commercial, and then it'll split farther down into the different neighborhoods, and then the condos will have their own association as well. It'll be, there is a paradigm for that in the county at Largo Town Center, actually, that's been going for 40 years now. and it does work. But it'll be pretty complex and well regulated. So you all better watch your paint color and grass height. There.
Last name is Thompson. I've lived here for quite some time. I just wanted to know what type of analysis or studies were done economically for the justification of putting up new shops in this area, seeing as how we have plenty of shops up and down 301 and Bowie Town Center is kind of lacking as it is now. So is it really sustainable to have the shops here as an option, and what was your justification for having that there?
Good question. So yes, we have had, in addition to our many decades of experience building shopping centers in Prince George's County, we did do professional third-party market studies as well. They are on record. The city staff has our latest one from last year, but the market studies have consistently shown that there is, notwithstanding Bowie Town Center has problems, there are existing shopping centers that have problems, but there is demand for new high-quality retail in this specific location on the 301 corridor. So in South Bowie, near the large neighborhoods that have been built in the last 10, 15 years that are not in the city, but just south of here, there's a large population of people that live on our side of 301 here. And the problem with the existing situation that becomes a problem for the larger Bowie community is that since there is no good quality retail in this location on 301, everybody goes to Crofton, or they go to Annapolis, or maybe some people go to Wilmore Town Center, but it ends up clogging the roads for everybody. And so the market studies have consistently shown that this is a donut hole. It's a gap in the market that will help serve not just what we're building here, but it will serve the surrounding neighborhoods in South Bowie as well.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
All right, hello. My last name is Judge. I live in the east section of Bowie, and unfortunately I got here late, so I missed a lot of it. This is in regards to, like, one of the things has to do with funding and everything. I know that the 2020 census is coming. Mm-hmm. It's going to be critical because all people who are alive have to be counted in PG County, and if it translates to around $1,825 per person over a 10-year period. So it's important that we get counted here in PG County, so the funds will help to, for roads and schools and things of that nature. Another thing too is that it's right now in Annapolis, for the next 3 months, it's, the bills are being passed and stuff like that. So we really we need to be in Annapolis. That's another thing. But, sir, I was wondering, in terms of this project, 2004 to 2020 now, what is the time frame? I missed all of that, like the time frame for when all of this will be complete. I understand that you started clearing ground in January of 2019, right? Yeah. So what is the time frame?
Good question. We all want it to be done, believe me. So we have anticipated a build-out period of between 7 and 10 years. 7 years if we were just building straight with no abatement. Typically, when we project these things over that type of long time frame, we anticipate, some economic slowdown. So we're saying about 10 years as an estimate for full build-out completion. So
2030. Something like that.
So we expect some homes and some stores to be completed in 2021, towards the end of 2021, 2022. And you really start to see substantial completion of stores and homes in the middle part of this decade.
Just in terms of road improvement, I guess I also missed that part of it too.
So we have the road improvements broken into 2 phases, 2 permits with State Highway. We've already obtained the first permit, and that's for improvements in Old Central Avenue and 301 South. Those will begin probably in the spring or early summer when the weather gets better and we move into the next major phase of development. It will happen before buildings actually start going up.
So you say 301
And Old Central Avenue.
Old Central Avenue. The expansion of road
Yes.
improvement there.
Yep.
And then you say the second part is?
The second part is kind of along the southern portion of our frontage, so it's more on 301 southbound, and it will also include the crossover at the Wawa median with some traffic signals. No, not an overpass, but just widening that road that's there now. And it will also include an additional traffic signal on Central Avenue where Old Central Avenue meets it.
So in terms of near Wawa, when does that start?
We don't quite have the permit for that one yet, so it would probably be later this year.
Sir, did you say when it's going to start? When your first house is going to start? That's what you were just asking.
I think the first house should be starting either, where are we at, where's Scott?
Mid the first quarter of next year.
Yeah, so approximately a year from now, a year plus a couple months.
So are you going to have pre-construction costs? That was another question someone brought me here to ask.
Pre-construction pricing for the houses?
Yes, sir.
There will be pre-construction pricing listed on the website when we get it complete.
Okay.
We're working on that now and should hopefully have that out in a couple of months.
Yes, sir.
We're meeting with all our builders and coordinating all our design amenities and everything to be incorporated on the website. And like I said, all that should be completed next couple of months.
I know it's winding down a little bit, but I do want to introduce you to Mr. Tom Graham, who, when we were speaking earlier, we were talking about the proximity of the Liberty Sports Park that's next to this site. Mr. Graham is the chairman of the
Green Branch Foundation.
Green Branch Foundation that's going to operate it, and so he's going to say a few words about what to look for there.
Thank you. I know the evening's long. I'm going to wear two hats. First, I represent the county on the Metro Board, and I know a gentleman had a comment earlier. So I'm going to give you my email address. It's thgraham@co.pg.maryland.us. And the line that's being considered is B29, and that goes from Bowie to Crofton. And then there's also some additions that are being considered from New Carrollton to Bowie. So that's that one hat. So now I'm going to go to this. Just way of background, I've been in the area in the Bowie, Upper Marlboro area about 15 years now. Retiree from Pepco, and before that I was a professional athlete, so I played soccer. So the county felt that I needed something to do, so they approached me and they asked me would I be willing to chair the Green Branch Foundation, which involves this particular project, which had been in planning for many, many years. The funding comes from the state and also from park and planning, and then the foundation is taking a loan through a local bank. So we feel that we're going to be able to open probably in the fourth quarter of this year and perhaps first quarter of next year. So what we have are 10 athletic fields. 6 will be turf fields, 4 will be grass fields. The whole concept is to create a sports destination. So you don't see anything like this in the country right now, where you're able to, in kind of growing up as a little soccer player and then as a coach, you go to a tournament, and what do? You try to find a hotel, you try to find some place to eat. So the connection between Liberty and South Lake is very unique because you can stay at the hotels, you can eat at the retail, you eat at the restaurants there, and it's very self-contained, and there's really nothing like it. So it's for soccer, it's for lacrosse, it's for football. The idea is to do a lot of tournaments, and also the idea is to do rentals for a lot of the local club teams. As you may know, the county executive has a big initiative towards building sports. And it's not towards building professional athletes, but she believes, and I also believe, that there are a lot of great values that you can get through athletics. And we don't have a lot of athletic facilities in the county. So in addition to the rentals that we're looking at, the school system will also have access at no charge to the facility in the afternoons, in the weekday afternoons. And then we've also worked out a schedule with Park and Planning where they will also have access to the facilities during defined areas. And when the field is empty, that's when we'll try to do rentals there. So in another kind of aspect of it that personally I want to bring in, there are a lot of retired athletes that want to come in that live in this area now and that want to come and want to mentor kids and talk to them. You know, we all see the success, but we don't all see the failure. And we all failed a little bit before we did well. And they want to kind of talk to them about that path moving forward. So that's the whole idea behind Liberty Sports Park. I'm excited about it. Way back in August of 2017, we did, believe it or not, we did a groundbreaking in 2017, and we haven't quite broken ground yet, but we're really close to breaking ground. But when this does open up, it's going to be a great thing for this community. And I'd accept any questions at this time. Yes, sir.
Quick question. What you just mentioned, though, is all exterior fields and all. Is there also an enclosed place where volleyball or other things like that are being proposed as well?
So, and that's a great question. And the thing I would also add is, I mentioned the turf fields, I mentioned the grass fields, but also the facility be lit as well. So, your question about indoor facility, it's an idea that the Michael companies has tossed around, and you know, we've talked to consultants, we've been down to Florida, and there is a concept that's being considered to include volleyball, basketball, indoor facility, performance training, laser tag, rock climbing, things of that nature. So that's something it's being considered. It's not part of this plan right now, and it's separate and distinct from Liberty Sports Park.
Hi, so you may have covered this, not you, but somebody else may have covered it because I came in late. But where exactly is this located? Like, but which street is that? Like, is that off of 301? Where exactly is that?
It's where there's still trees on our side.
Okay.
So we have 76 acres.
Okay.
And, you know, as you go down 301, it's kind of a different look now, right?
Yes.
Because the trees have been cleared out.
Yes.
But if you made that right down trade zone, it's towards the back.
Okay.
Right, so it's at the end of Prince George's Boulevard,
Okay.
perpendicular to trade zone.
Yes.
So on the map here, that stoplight where my arrow is next to the Wawa.
Okay.
And like Mr. Graham said, his trees are still there.
Okay.
So it's just beyond the clearing is where these fields will be.
So I live over in Oak Creek, and I was looking at this map. I said, we're getting real close to where I live. So that's how far back it goes. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I think that's a great idea. I played flag football for like 15 years straight, and every time we would go to like big events, especially in Florida, we would have to stay 45 minutes away.
Right.
Then the local gas station might have been another 20 minutes just to go get some Gatorades. I think, especially when they had tournaments up here, that they're probably gonna go right there because it's a great location for it's like a weekend tournament. Mm-hmm. Or even when I was taking my son to sports for college camps and things like that. I'm sorry. So when I was like taking my son to like college camps, plus when I played flag football, the facility where they would be performing and where you would stay at and getting things to eat would always be like 20 minutes away, things like that. So when I've been seeing it like last year, I'm like, I never seen this nowhere else because I go to Florida everywhere playing football. You just never seen it that close to a hotel before.
Now, thank you for that. The last thing I'll add is that whatever we're able to earn above what our costs are, because we're a foundation, we're going to reinvest back into the community. Is that it? Yes.
Thank you for coming out. I don't have a question for you, but what I was going to say is I do appreciate everyone coming out. it is a priority of this council, this new council, to make sure that the community is always involved in decisions like this and understands what's going on, making sure that you're able to get your questions answered. With this particular development, it's very important for us, since this is already approved, since it's coming, for you to be able to have a stake in the game since this is already approved and since this is already coming, and make sure that it looks the way you want it to look. So that is why we invited NAI Michaels to come out tonight, and hopefully they were able to answer your questions. If you feel like you haven't gotten a chance to ask your questions or they haven't been answered, feel free to reach out to any one of us on the council, including the city manager, Alfred Lott, over there. Feel free to reach out and ask us any questions or direct any comments you have towards us. But we do appreciate you coming out tonight. We do appreciate you coming out to share everything with the community, and also appreciate you presenting on Liberty Sports Park. So thank you very much for being here. And also, there is a sign-up sheet in the back if you want to drop your email so that we can continue to update you and make sure that you're aware of everything that's going on. Thank you.
That's great. Hopefully soon.